Sleep is one of the most underrated and overlooked activity in our daily life. We always sacrifice sleep in the first place in order for us to perform more. For example, let's look at this driver who was driving somewhere along one of the highways in China. I'm sure he did not mean anything bad, but he went into something what we call as micro sleep. He dozed off for 20 seconds and skidded off the highway and hit into a divider, caused many injuries in the bus and was responsible for one death of the passenger in the bus. So these are the detrimental effects of lacking sleep. So in this video, we're going to explore why do we sleep, what are involved during a sleep process, and what measures can we take in order for us to optimize our sleep. So we as human beings, we are considered diurnal species. We are animals who are supposed to be awake during the day and to be asleep during the night. So why does this happen is because long ago our ancestors, we were supposed to be awake during the day because during the day is when the hunting activity is at its peak. In order for us not to fall prey to any of the hunting species, we are always on the run during the day. And when every activity has come to slow down during the night, and then our ancestors find a cave or some shelter to sleep, to wind down, to restore their energy in order for them to continue the next day. We were basically living on a daily basis long ago because every single day is a new day for us to ensure our survival capacity out in the wilderness. So this has been programmed into evolution into our brain up till today. So 150 years later, in terms of evolutionary calendar, is something small for us to simply change and adapt to how we are living this point of time. Sleep can be considered into two different parts. One is sleep drive and one is sleep rhythm. So sleep drive is something like our hunger drive. As we get more and more hungry, we tend to search for food. Once we eat, it goes away. Same goes to sleep. Whenever our body, our cells consume its primary fuel, which is called glucose, it releases a byproduct which is called adenosine. So as adenosine accumulates in our body, we tend to get sleepier. So the fun fact about adenosine is that adenosine and caffeine are only off by one molecule. Because of this, caffeine is so similar to adenosine, it can attach to the same receptor where adenosine attaches in our brain that tends to keep us awake. Sleep rhythm is more like how we get hungry during morning, afternoon and evening. The same way, sleep also has a rhythm. So this rhythm is called circadian rhythm. So it follows our core body temperature. So when our core body temperature plummets or decreases, special hormone is released from our body which is called melatonin. Melatonin is like a key to start our engine to prepare us for sleep. And usually melatonin peaks on our body between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So this is one of the optimal time for us to fall asleep. We used to see sleep as a whole activity, which is about 7 to 8 hours. But advances in science shows that during our sleep, we go periodic things what we call as sleep cycles. And each sleep cycle is roughly about 90 minutes. And each of the sleep cycle, we go through 5 stages. So stage 1 is where, let's say John, for example, he goes from being awake into falling asleep. That constitutes about 2% of his sleep cycle. And then goes to stage 2. So during this stage 2 is what we call as maintenance stage. It constitutes about 50% of our sleep. And then we go to stage 3 and stage 4. This stage what we call as deep sleep. So when John goes into deep sleep, his body releases something what we call as growth hormone. So growth hormone is a reconstructing hormone. It repairs our muscles, it repairs our cells in order for us to be in a better shape the next day. So when somebody had a deep sleep, they usually will wake up very fresh in the morning without any pain in their body. Then we come to one of the most interesting part of the stages, what we call as REM stage. And during this REM stage, what we call as rapid eye movement stage, literally when we open someone's eye when they are asleep, the eyes rapidly moves during this period. So this is where storing of memory takes place. Our brain takes short-term memories and converts them into long-term memories. And now we know that during this stage is where dreams happen. So when John wakes up the next day, says that he saw his dog going on a rocket and having dinner with his family on the moon and coming down to earth by taking a staircase. These are all the weird things that happens during our dream because our brain is trying to create new connections to create long-term memories. So we tend to have all these weird dreams when we go through REM stage. And during REM stage, another fun fact is that we are completely paralyzed. So the reason is that that's the body's way of saving ourselves from hurting ourselves from acting out based on our dreams. Each human being has about 5 sleep cycles during the night. The interesting part is that stage 3 and stage 4, where the deep sleep occurs, happens earlier during the night, and the REM stage, where the memory takes place, happens later during the waking period of the sleep. So when John gets up the next morning, when he says that he can't remember where he kept his car keys, or he can't remember the meeting for the day, that usually shows that during his sleep, most likely his REM stage was disturbed. So we will go through stage 1 to stage 5 every single cycle, but sometimes because our sleep is not optimized, some of these stages gets disturbed. So now we know that each sleep cycle has 5 stages. So we have a lot of disruptors that actually can disturb each of these stages during our sleep cycle. That makes our sleep not optimized. So one of the famous disruptors for our sleep is blue light. So blue lights are artificial lights that is emitted from our light source, from our phones, from our computer, and also TV. It mimics the frequency of the light that is emitted by our sunlight. So when this light hits our color receptors in our eye, what happens is that usually it triggers a cell called melanopsin. So melanopsin usually tells the brain to turn off the production of melatonin, which is the key hormone for us to feel sleepy. So if this gets turned off, usually our sleep is always disrupted. That's number one. One of the most famously used sleep aid in the world is alcohol. But alcohol is one of the famous disruptors for sleep as well. Because when we consume alcohol closer to bedtime, it puts our brain into a peculiar state where we call it as alpha delta wave state. The brain usually lingers between a state of being fully awake and fully asleep. So when this happens, like I said earlier, the stage 1 all the way to stage 5 of the sleep is not fully optimized on each cycle of our sleep. This makes us to get up in the morning not fully rested. One of the main reasons hangover happen is that because of dehydration and because of this sleeping pattern. So what can we do to avoid this is that we shouldn't consume alcohol too close to our bedtime, because each alcoholic beverage that we consume takes about 1 hour to be fully digested. So let's say John takes 2 glasses of wine at night. So he should now consume 1 glass of water for each glass of wine that he has consumed. This helps to slow down the alcohol consumption, and also it helps John to completely stay hydrated while he's consuming alcohol. The second way we can help with this disruptor is that for each alcoholic beverage that we consume, we should actually give 1 hour before we go to bed. So again, when John consumes 2 glasses of wine, let's say at 8 p.m, he now should take 2 hours before he goes to bed. So the ideal time for John to go to bed is somewhere around 10 p.m. Another famous disruptor of sleep is coffee. Coffee is the most widely abused substance in the world. Coffee contains caffeine. Caffeine, we regard them as psychostimulant. Basically, it means that it keeps our brains awake. So like I mentioned earlier, coffee and adenosine only differs by 1 molecular structure. The drawback about caffeine is that it takes about 6 to 8 hours to reach half of its dose in our blood once it's consumed. So let's say John consumes coffee at 9 a.m. The coffee contains about 200 milligrams of caffeine. Now it takes about 6 to 8 hours for it to reach half of its value in his blood. So when somebody consumes caffeine closer to their bedtime, usually they will not have an optimized sleep. So what we can do is that we can consume coffee before 2 p.m. because melatonin production in our body is between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So we want to get rid of the caffeine from our system as much as possible before we go to bedtime. The second way we can consume caffeine is that we can consume it within 90 minutes of waking up. The reason behind this is that we are usually waken up by stimulating hormones that is released in our body, such as cortisol and adrenaline. So during this 90 minutes period, they are at their peak level in our body. So when we consume caffeine during this period, it usually gives us a better effect rather than consuming it later during the day. One of the ways that we can optimize our sleep is to have a winding down hour. Usually a winding down hour, as famously suggested and advised by sleep doctor Dr. Michael Bruce, we should have 60 minutes before we go into sleep. And during the 60 minutes, we should divide them into 3 parts of 20 minutes. The first part of these 20 minutes should be allocated into doing things that causes us to feel anxious the next morning, such as getting our clothes ready, getting our kids lunch and their clothes ready for school and whatnot. And then the second 20 minutes should be allocated into routine tasks that we do usually before going to sleep, such as changing our clothes into pajamas, brushing our teeth and getting the bed ready. The last 20 minutes, in order for us to fall asleep faster, we can actually practice this breathing technique, what we call as the Navy SEAL breathing technique. So the snipers in Navy SEALs usually use this breathing technique to get their heart rate down. Now we know that in order order for a human being to fall asleep, their heart rate should get below 60 beats per minute. So we can do this 4-7-8 breathing technique in order for us to fall asleep faster. Number one, what we have to do is that get comfortable, get on the bed, and then practice this breathing technique where we inhale for 4 counts, we hold our breath for 7 counts, and then we exhale for 8 counts. So this is one of the proven techniques in the Navy SEALs to get the heart rate down. So if we can get the heart rate down, usually we can fall asleep faster. Another disruptor of sleep to look into is our medicine cabinet. We usually have some over-the-counter medicines that we take on a daily basis that might contain stimulants in them without us knowing. So please feel free to discuss with your doctors some of the medicines that was bought over the counter that is taken on a daily basis in order to find out if it has any stimulants in it and during what part of the day it should be taken to optimize our sleep. One of the key methods to optimize our sleep is to track our sleep. Nowadays we have a lot of gadgets, we have watches, we have rings, we have apps to track our sleep. But sleep specialists, they prefer to go the conventional way. By manually tracking our sleep, we can customize and optimize our sleeping pattern to our own self. So in this description box below the video, I've shared a PDF file where you can download to use it for your own benefit to track your own sleep. So this PDF tracker consists of few metrics: the total number of hours we have slept, what is the time that we go to sleep, what is the time we wake up in the morning, and what time do we actually fall asleep, how many times we woke up during the night, how is our energy level during the morning, afternoon, and also evening, and of course how many naps we took throughout the day. So as we consistently track all these metrics throughout the period of 7 days to 14 days, we can see a pattern that emerges out of this data collection. So when we see a pattern, from here onwards we can actually tweak here and there all of this inconsistency throughout the metrics to optimize our sleeping pattern. These are a few tools and tips that I've learned by following Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, online, also reading few books on sleep such as The Sleeping Solution by Dr. Chris Winter and also Sleeping Smarter by Shawn Stevenson. There are a lot of ways and tips and tricks to enhance and optimize our sleep, but sometimes procrastination comes along the way. So if you're interested to know why we procrastinate and how can we avoid procrastination, feel free to check out this video that I've shared here. So till then, take care, see you all, bye bye.